As police hunt for the suspect, Justin Bourque, they're also looking for insight into his state of mind and his motivation. That's a process retired RCMP criminal profiler Glenn Woods is very familiar with. Glenn joins me tonight from Ottawa. Glenn, thanks for coming in to speak to us. And let me just start with, I think, with the burning question for a lot of people. And for you, are you surprised that 24+ hours later, RCMP still haven't been able to apprehend him?
Well, I am a little surprised because normally there's a lot more planning put into the actual shooting than there is consideration for how they're going to escape. And many times in these kinds of cases, these individuals' primary focus is on the shooting part with little thought given to how they're going to get away with it. And in fact, many leave their home with the view that they'll die either by their own hand or that the police will shoot them. Yeah. So I am a little bit surprised.
Yeah, and that's often, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's been, the experience has taught us that that's often the outcome of these events where the shooters turn their weapon on themselves. But as far as we know to date, that hasn't happened here. Interesting to see, though, what police now try to profile him. They didn't know when they were first called, from what we understand by the 911 call, who they were dealing with. Now they've had time to build a picture. Tell us what's going on behind the scenes as police are looking for more information about who this guy is and what is motivating him.
Well, I think, you know, there's a two-pronged investigation. Obviously, the focus is on capturing and arresting this individual. But in these kinds of cases, it's really important, and I'm confident that they're following up and trying to get as much background on the subject as they can. Talking to relatives, talking to close friends, and particularly talking to people who might have similar thoughts and ideas will get them some insight and have an understanding on what he may be planning afterwards and even an eventual escape route.
What are they looking for specifically? I'm sure as they talk to them, they want to get as much information as possible. But even if it were to understand better his motivation, for example, how can that help police ultimately apprehend him?
Well, it gives them some insight into whether or not he's planning on killing himself, or whether or not he's got a plan to leave the area and try to hide from the police in the long term. And I think the things they really want to look at are what he's reading, what sites he's visited on the internet, what he's what kinds of discussions he's had with friends and acquaintances, and whether or not that escalation, when it started, what started it off, because most of the time these individuals are thinking about this over a long period of time. You know, the violence is an evolutionary process. You don't immediately jump to violence when you come up with the idea that that's the route you want to take. This often involves a lot of time, and over that time we see indicators, or what we call signposts, behavior that indicates someone is escalating. So I'd like to talk to, friends of a subject, family, anybody that's close, and particularly those who share their ideas, because they're the people that are more likely that he shared his ideas with.
You mentioned time, and I'm wondering at this stage, is time working for or against the police? In other words, is it wearing down the fugitive, or is it giving him more time to get distance between him and police?
Well, I think, unless you know the subject in some depth, it's difficult to answer that question. I would say that the longer the time, the more time it gives him to escape the area. So not knowing his motivation and what his thought process was makes it difficult really to approach that question.
And there's a practical consideration. The people of Moncton have been so good about cooperating with this lockdown, but that can only go on for so long until people's lives have to resume. And I wonder if that's also going to somehow be able to help him, help the fugitive.
Well, I think one thing that jumped out at me when I see these cases is the individuals either will randomly shoot everyone they come across, or they will really pick their targets. And in this case, it seems like the targets were picked. He actually bypassed many people that he could have injured very seriously. So I think that's a very positive thing. But I do believe that over time, the police will be going through the neighborhood and clearing parts of the neighborhood to narrow it down to a smaller area.
Well, we'll be watching along with you. Glenn Woods, great to get your insight tonight. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.